I had done it again. I was sitting there, alone in our room, when the fever broke and the feelings of shame and regret washed over me. See, when I'm under stress, when a migraine takes hold, or when I hear the name of someone who has hurt me, I lose myself. I stop being rational. I stop being the person that I want to be. Instead, I react and become reactive and treat those around me with unearned harsh words and actions. Afterwards, when I finally calm down, I sit in shame and tell myself, never again. And I do mean it every time. But a day, a week, a month later, sometimes it might even be just an hour, the cycle repeats. It shows up again and again as part of a larger framework in my life. When I get reactive, I feed that Yetzer Hara, that evil inclination within me that is shouting at me to protect and lash out and respond to hurt with hurt. I recognize that this is one of my worst cycles and worst patterns that I so easily fall into. It's not something I'm proud of. And in that moment, when I'm past whatever set me off, I really do promise full-heartedly to never repeat that behavior again. But Teshuvah, real change, real turning, only happens once we finally move past our intentions. It's not a feeling. It's not aspirational. Real Teshuvah is a verb. It's an action. It's an occurrence. Rambam, Maimonides, the rationalist philosopher and legal thinker that redefined Judaism 1,000 years ago, taught that we will know that Teshuvah is real when we are in the exact same situation again and we act differently. We respond differently. If we think of the High Holy Days as a roadmap, then the month leading up to Rosh Hashanah, Elul, is the time for Cheshbon HaNefesh, of doing an honest accounting of who we've been and what our impact, not our intentions, has been over this last year. On Rosh Hashanah, we own those pieces of ourselves that we want to let go of and move on from, even casting them off into literal bodies of water when we do tashlich. But Yom Kippur centers on the closing of the gates of our lives that close day by day as we live them. For today is a day when we lean into the idea that we are mortal, that we are here but for a moment, and that the story will go on long after we are gone. Today's a day when we commit to turning the learnings of Elul and the goals of Rosh Hashanah and the past 10 days into the real Teshuvah, the defining work of Yom Kippur. Because it's not about what we feel, and it's not about what we hope for. It's about what we do. There's a teaching in the Zohar, that great 13th century mystical text that's rich with poetry and psychedelic spiritual imagination, that teaches that the reason our wandering lasted for 40 years after we left Egypt, before we made it to the Promised Land, it says that we needed to leave the spiritual and psychological Egypt as well, which was a lot harder to leave than the physical one. Leaving this Egypt, leaving Mitzrayim, wasn't something that happened all at once. It wasn't a single moment. It was instead a series of 49 gates we had to pass through to freedom, not just of geography, but of transformation. We had to prepare spiritually. We had to change ourselves and do the Teshuvah necessary to enter the Promised Land. If it helps, I think of them sort of like levels on a map of Super Mario Brothers. You know what, you can picture it. Some gates we have to tackle immediately. Some we can put off, and others stand in front of us, demanding that we change before we pass on to the other side. With each subsequent gate we pass through, the Zohar teaches, we leave behind a little more of our own Mitzrayim, our own narrowness, and move one step closer to liberation. There's something profound in our tradition that Moses was never able to enter the Promised Land, that even if he made it through all 49 of the gates, we know he did not get to pass through the 50th, because none of us make it through every gate. None of us get to enter our own version of the Promised Land. The story will continue long after we have gone through our last gate. This isn't failure. This is what it means to be human. None of us will reach the finish line or cross every threshold. Sometimes fear keeps us stuck on one side, or we step partway in only to pull back our foot and retreat. This is why we need Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur forces us to hone in on the one question that matters most. If I know I am not going to make it through every gate in my lifetime, which gates do I need to walk through while I am here, while I still have time? I've been spending a lot of time during these last weeks of reflection thinking about this pattern of reactivity that I fall into. How can I stop it? Where can I short circuit it? And I'll confess that more than once, I've fallen right into this pattern again, even in the middle of me trying to write this sermon. But one of the things that's become clear is that I'm not alone in this pattern. As I reflected on my own reactivity, I've watched our community, our entire Jewish community, fall into the same trap. We all have triggers that send us into that defensive, reactive mode where we stop being our best selves. We all have topics where curiosity shuts down and tribalism takes over. For so many of us, that trigger comes the moment we hear the words Israel, or Palestine, or colonialist, or genocide, or Zionist, or anti-Zionist. That's when this worst version of ourselves, this reactive tribal cruel, takes over. So that feeling you probably have right now in your stomach from hearing those words, that initial gut reaction, that is what is keeping us stuck in front of the gate of curiosity. We live in a world that rewards our reactivity. Social media monetizes our rage, outrage gets the clicks, and screens make us ruthless. And in Jewish life, nowhere is this clearer than in how we talk about Israel. This dynamic didn't start with October 7th, but the Israel-Gaza war certainly has magnified it. We reward people for being bullies as long as they are on our side. We tolerate cruelty in this one arena that we would never accept anywhere else. That rush of indignation, of self-righteous victimhood, it feels so real and so justified and so good in that moment. And yet, when we do this, we're allowing our Yetzer Hara to take over and define us. And more than that, to define our communal discourse. Yom Kippur calls on us to recognize this dynamic in ourselves and in our community, and to move beyond our reactivity and what's causing us to circle the gate, and instead finally cross through to the other side, where there's curiosity and inquisitiveness, where there's competing truths and nuance. We each have gates we circle, gates we're stuck in front of, gates we're hoping to finally pass through on our way out of our own narrow places. The gate of finally repairing the broken relationship we think about year after year on Yom Kippur. The gate of admitting we haven't been truthful with ourselves or others, even when lies feel safer or easier to tell. The gate of speaking our own truth at that dinner with family or friends when we'd rather stay silent. The gate of forgiving that person or people who have hurt us and letting go of the resentments taking up rent in our heads. The gate of beginning again after failure has knocked us down. And the gate of catching ourselves before reactivity takes over and we become a version of ourselves we aren't proud of. Yom Kippur itself is a threshold, one where for 25 hours we step out of the routines of ordinary life. No eating, no drinking, no physical relations, no bathing, and pray that we emerge on the other side with the courage and clarity to actively walk through the gates we need to walk through while we still have time. The final service on Yom Kippur, Ne'ilah, literally means closing or locking, reminding us once more that our time is limited and that the intense spiritual urgency we feel must translate into action if we truly want 5786 to be different than 5785. The gates do not stay open forever, not the gates of Yom Kippur, and not the gates of our lives. None of us knows how many thresholds remain before our own book closes. So now is the time to move from intention to action, from meaning to doing. For me, that means finally taking the steps to catch myself when I start to feel reactive, to fully cross through the gate of being deliberate about my actions and how I treat others when I'm stressed and upset. For us here at TRC, it means walking the walk of radical inclusivity and bringing justice and tolerance into hostile times for our people. Our future and our communal futures depend on the gates we choose to cross through now. So in this year of 5786, may we not settle for intention, but instead focus on our actions. May we cross the gates that matter most in our lives and in our communal lives. May we be a community known for curiosity over cruelty, justice over fear, and hope over reactivity. And may we step forward together before the gates close.